what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and a PayPal link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show increases the live audience, of course, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you are new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Was, A Plain Truth, Ranty, Mark.
Hello.
Brenda, Dawn, Arwin and Alan. How are you all doing?
Hello.
Are we broadcasting?
Hello.
Yeah, the
We
brightly
are,
higher.
yes, we are.
Righto, Jeeves.
We are live. Brenda, he does 2 shows now a day.
So I've got
Really?
flat earthers in my DMs
Okay.
saying that you're a bit weird, Nathan, and you go mad a lot.
You what, sorry?
I've got flat earthers telling me that sometimes you go a bit over the top and mad.
Yeah, when I get people asserting that I don't understand science and then they can't formulate a hypothesis and don't understand what
I
a
think you do
phenomenon
understand
is,
science,
then
but I
yeah,
think when you explain
I
it,
tend to
you
get quite
manipulate
annoyed
it
with them.
and
Same
change it.
goes when I'm giving somebody an answer to the question, they just start talking mid-sentence before I've even finished my first breath.
Sorry about that.
That's
I
all right,
just
Dawn, no
explained
problem at all. I'll just do the same back to you and just ruin your point while you're talking so no one gets to hear you, because it's fun,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it's stupid.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
Okay.
Yep, correct, Brenda.
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
Brenda. So if I have a camera and I'm taking an image of something in the distance, say a house, and that house is only 10 pixels in my camera.
Is it in focus?
Can
and
you
it's in
please?
focus. It's in focus. You can see the entirety of the house. You know what you're looking at. It's only 10 pixels, though, right? And then you see another house, and it's twice as far back again. How many pixels will that house be?
Well, I don't know. How big is the house bigger? Is it the same size or what?
Same size of house, just twice the distance away.
Well, I don't know. I suppose it would be 5, but I don't know.
Okay, and then you see a house that's twice as far back as that one. How many pixels
I
would
don't
that be? Would there come a
Make a
point that there
calculator.
would be no pixels of a house?
Hmm.
Huh?
Would there come a distance that you wouldn't be able to physically see a pixel of a house because it would be so far away?
No,
Really?
really.
Okay.
Because we have stars. We have stars that are
Yeah,
millions of
stop
light years
obfuscating.
away.
Stop obfuscating.
We have stars that are millions
There's
of light
nothing
years
to do
away.
with this.
Ah,
You
well.
can see them. There's no limit to how far you can
Trying to
see.
say, if it disappears
there
in
is.
pixels,
A resolution limit.
that means it's gone like that. That explains the curvature.
If you can't see it because it's too small to see, it doesn't register, doesn't fit in the
Well, I remind
resolution
you-
that you can see with, then you can't see it, even if it is
being
there.
too small and being half gone from the bottom is not the same thing, is it?
Right. They're not the same thing.
And you say it's the curve, though.
Well, that's the most logical explanation, isn't it? Unless the
Yeah.
world's slanted and everyone seems to look down the slant or up the slant or whatever.
Yes.
Well, yeah, the
Angular
optical
size
slant.
reduction
Nathan,
at distance.
Arwen doesn't
Optical
understand.
slant. What is an
curve
optical slant?
We used
You want me to
well, we
explain
still
it
do.
again?
Yeah.
Well,
What is an
yeah.
optical slant, Arwen?
An optical slant is an optical phenomena that is present in all observations. And what it is basically when you look into the distance from a certain height, then at some point there is the zone where there is miraging going on, which has been evidenced with footage.
Fucking amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Forget how
Can you please
amazing
let me
this is.
finish. Yeah.
Sorry.
Zone where there is miraging going on, and Ranty's photographs have proven this. But beside that, part of the ocean is
What is an
also, or
optical
usually the ocean
slant?
can be
Like-
like, it's also being miraged. It's actually
Okay.
being miraged upwards.
Well, I thought you were
This
describing what an
causes
optical
An
slant
apparent
is.
slant. You see ocean where in physicality it is not, because of this optical slant effect.
I
And
don't.
this
You didn't
optical
describe what an
slant
optical
causes
slant is,
some
Arwen.
obstruction that Globers love to
I actually like
interpret as
Right.
curvature. But
Let
there's a
me-
big
let
thing,
him
if you
finish
can
his
let me
explanation.
finish, there's a big thing about it, and that is beyond that optical slant, which you interpret as curvature, there is a straight line of sight from there on. And the only way that things could
What are you
actually be
talking about,
falling
Arwen?
behind the curvature is if they, beyond that slant, would start to drop and then completely fall away at
They
some
do
point.
do that. No, they do
Yet
do
in
that.
reality, it never happens
Arwen,
because there's a
Arwen.
straight line of sight and things only get smaller through perspective. And if there's no
Yeah, but
obscuring because of lack of air clarity, then you can see super far distant
Dawn.
objects beyond the
Dawn.
slant that should not be visible on a curvature because it should
This
be
is
fallen
beautiful.
away
Dawn, shut up.
completely because of the cumulative drop of this physical curvature.
Can you say that
That
again?
does not
this word?
exist because it's a straight
Arwen.
line of sight from the
Arwen.
slant on.
Utter
Can you
word
just-
salad.
Right,
Hang
not
on, can
word
you
salad
repeat
at
that?
all.
Word
So
salad.
what Arwen has just detailed while you talked all over
No,
him
it
was
just
essentially
word
the
salad.
effects.
Nate.
Shut up! You said I don't understand. You said I don't get it. Right? You don't get it. So you're both stupid. So you're both
It's
stupid. You don't get it.
What Arwen described is just a word salad.
No,
of
it means you
concepts
don't
just sort of
understand.
jumbled
He's
together.
just described perspective, and if you don't
he
understand that,
didn't.
I'm more than happy to explain it
No,
again
he
in
didn't.
different
Oh,
words.
please, would you
Shut
explain
up!
perspective to me,
Shut up!
Nathan?
Stop talking. If
Which
you
way
didn't
is
get
the
it and
slam
you class it
pointing?
as word salad, it's because you're a perspective denier. What he has just described is perspective. Now, if you want
No,
to
he
deny,
described
shut
yours.
up. If you
Does
want to
it work with
deny
the same
that,
slant?
that just
Shut up!
right.
Shut up.
Let's kick Alan out. He's
Okay,
clearly
shall I
a
just
total
kick them all
wanker.
because-
Get out, Alan.
Hey,
You can't
Arwen.
keep your mouth shut while I
Arwen.
keep an explanation going for more than about 10 seconds.
Optical slant.
Yeah, you're the
Arwen.
same, Brenda. Shut your mouth. If you don't understand this, it's because you don't understand perspective. And the reason you don't understand perspective is because it is omitted from your mathematics. You don't account for it. You view the world in orthographic, which is what your calculations do. An orthographic calculation. However, what Arwen is describing quite eloquently is perspective. And the perspective view gives you a slant. Ah, right, whole panel's gone. So it's either constant interruption or no panel. Wonderful. There will be a small intermission. So the link has gone out on a few channels on Skype. Hi, Mark.
Hello, folks.
Who sniped everyone? Because there was no new joiners, so it was someone who was already on the panel.
Sorry, say it again.
Whoever sniped the panel was already on the panel because nobody joined.
Okay.
Well, that was fun.
Did Did Alan get kicked though? Did Alan take us all with him?
No, I kicked Alan because he wouldn't shut up.
Yeah,
He
someone
kept
jumped in.
I think
interrupting.
it was Brenda.
It was.
Brenda
We can't say for sure who it was, but
It was
Probably
Ranty.
Brenda. Brenda kicks people.
I think it was Ranty.
I think it's Ranty too.
I have better things
You
to
kicked
do.
the wrong people, Ranty.
Better things to do in my life, trust me, than kick the panel.
Dawn Treader
You
was in
know-
last, so maybe it was Dawn Treader.
But, you know, as jolly as it all sounds, this little debate every day, essentially what we're talking about is a huge miscarriage of justice on the human race. And it's massive, and it affects everybody. And it is a serious debate. I can understand why you get annoyed, Nathan.
Yeah, I get annoyed with Brenda when she says, this is science, look at the observation on screen, it proves curvature. And then basically you take her through the steps that I originally asserted. Where's your proof of R? Everything that you will assert from here on in will rely on that value. If you go to a calculator, it's using that value. So that's what she did. That was the steps she took. But ignoring what I asked for originally, scientific evidence for the value of R. And they have none. There is no scientific evidence for the value of R. It's just assumed. Now, we all understand that. Brenda claims to have been away for a few months. Tough luck. There's no scientific evidence for R. It's openly admitted by people who have, rather than just take their own responsibility and say, my calculator's wrong, Mick West said, I just take the value from the standard model. In other words, he decided rather than take it on the chin, he'd take the whole deck of cards down with him. Yeah, it's just the R value from the standard model that I'm using in my calculation. So it's not me, that's the standard model. Well, yeah, thanks, Mick. Wonderful. Brilliantly phrased. So yes, the standard model is where he got his R value from, and the standard model has no scientific evidence for the R value. It's just a model. It's not where we live. And this is the problem all these buffoons have. They all think the model is where they live. And you don't live on a model, you live on the Earth. And it's obviously and observably flat, conceded on both sides. People like Charles use it like it's some sort of justification for there being no curve. Well, yeah, it looks flat. I'll accept that. It looks flat. From everywhere you look, it's flat. Right. Yeah, it is. Then there's nothing more to that other than when you insert an R value. Hey, Chocolate.
Hey, man.
Morning, fellas. How you guys doing?
Man.
You guys hear me okay?
But
Yeah, we hear you.
seriously, Brenda, this person, I don't even know what he or she is, but oh my god, like she doesn't show up for months, and she just immediately assumes that she's on top of things, and she
Well, that's
doesn't
Brenda
even
all
know
over.
what R is, and a few seconds later claims to actually have scientific evidence for it. How retarded can you be? How retarded can you be?
Scientific evidence of R. R? R?
Yeah, but she literally said she didn't know what it is, and when you explained it, immediately claimed she had scientific evidence for it. How retarded! It's like an 8-year-old with an attitude. It's so transparent. It just seriously, if this was
Trans
my
what?
hangout, I would just kick her immediately. Like, this person is a waste of everyone's time. Just go and catch up. Go and watch the last few 100 hours of debates. And then if you can get it in your very tiny brain, actually understand what's going on, then you might come back.
But there's no movement in her mind that we're wrong. So she can come in anytime she wants. We're wrong. She's right.
Isn't that a waste of our time? Seriously. It's not even a debate here. How can you debate with somebody that's completely ignorant, that doesn't even keep track of what's going on, doesn't even understand the scientific method? They're just spouting out words. They're trolling.
Absolutely. How dare she? Should absolutely be keeping up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Subscribe today.
Yeah. Sorry, it's just... I liked how the show started out. It was nice just talking about dreams and stuff. It's not science. It's still interesting.
Is this the second hour?
To just have somebody like that on the panel just gives me a freaking headache.
You're up, Ranty. What you got?
Yeah, Nathan. So, you know that we did this from the 1 foot observation. What I'm showing here is this. I'm not even sure what it is. I just think it's like a post that's in the ocean somewhere. It's yellow and black, but in a direct line behind it, we can actually see the lighthouse. Everyone's pretty okay with it being the lighthouse. I know it's the lighthouse. I moved back. I filmed it clearer than this. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that when I went to a foot yesterday and we had a 2-foot swell, you can obviously see that the water's very calm here on this day. But when we had a 2-foot swell, we were getting some of the waves were coming up to here that you evidenced in your the screenshots that you took, and then some of the waves when they were dropping down were showing this much of the black. Yeah. So perspectively, can you see this, the height of the lighthouse behind, which is from there to there? Now that lighthouse is about 70 foot high. So 70 foot, 2-foot wave in the foreground, blocking out all of that. And that's what we saw yesterday. This is the perspective argument that they don't understand. But also, I'd like to say that, you know, when the waves were dropping down and you evidenced all this amount of black in the imagery, essentially we were seeing, well, we would have been able to see if it had been calmer, that much of the lighthouse. Now, all of that lighthouse should be gone on the curve calcs anyway, all of it. But yeah, I thought it was interesting to try and show that between the contrast between the wave heights. You know, what would that be blocking out in the background? Probably 100 feet or so, because we had the choppiness going on here, and then we had the wave heights that were going from this height here to this height here. So from there to there, it was blocking out everything in the background. That's the only reason we weren't able to see it yesterday.
Yeah, it was cool that I mean, you were obviously just filming random stuff, so we had to kind of go into the video and pick out bits that had this, whatever it is, I called it a buoy, I don't know what it is, but like you say, post, and go through it to find bits where it's obscured by a wave, but you can see a wave next to it that's lower. So, and then in the next shot, you can see it. So it's obscured, then it's not obscured, and in other words, it's rare that you'll have the thing obscuring it such that you can actually see through it periodically, because it's normally an accumulation of all of what's between you and what's in the distance. So the same with Arwen's slant. As you reach the midpoint in terms of perspective, so for the audience's benefit, there's lines that are coming up to the midpoint, wherever the vanishing point is in this picture, and those lines are what Arwen's describing when he says the slant. What he's talking about is the lines of perspective that come up to the midpoint. And if you've got a 2-foot wave cresting here, that same 2-foot wave is also going to be cresting the same 2 feet high in the distance, but it's going to be more likely to obscure stuff on the midpoint where you have the circle of confusion. And that's where Arwen's saying that you have this optical slant. Anything behind that slant will be obscured by anything that's rising up along the slant towards the midpoint, i.e. the point of convergence. So, you know, Arwen's been saying this for ages and constantly just gets talked over. It's taken me longer to get it than it took him to get it. Arwen got this long before any of us. So, you know, hats off to Arwen, because he's the only one who's got it, while everyone was ridiculing him and saying slant earth this and nonsense that. No, he's describing very well, now I've listened back to a couple of the shows exceptionally well, the effects of perspective, but he's trying to describe it so you can visualize it. You know, it's much easier now to sort of verbalize it so that you can understand it clearly. When they draw their side elevation picture, they're taking a single line of sight to the observation, one straight line, or you could say it's 2 parallel lines running along a side profile picture. Well, in reality, that's not what we see. We see things converging, rising up to the midpoint from the bottom and coming down from the top to the convergence point. That's what we actually see. We don't see a straight line of sight. You know, this isn't straight that we're seeing to this item. We're seeing up along Arwen's slant, as he calls it. So that's what we're actually experiencing in real life. But to get that, or to show the angular size difference between this. Let's pretend for a second that this is like 20 foot, 30 foot. Well, you've got something that's maybe 100 foot in the background, and it's half the size. Well, that's the effect of perspective. The angular size has reduced at distance. Whereas if you draw a straight line inside profile between this and your observation point, it will stay exactly the same size because you've only got one line. You need two to gain an angle. So with this, you could gain an angle using the perspective view of what we actually get from every single photograph ever taken in history ever. But you get a perspective view, things converging at the centre, and that's what they've excluded. Single lines will only ever give you actual sizes. You need two lines to give you something that will give you an angular size, and you can measure the difference between the top and the bottom. That'll give you your angle. But it doesn't give you a comparison if you say that there's a straight line from my position to these two items, because obviously that's not a straight line. You know, we're not seeing straight out to these things. One looks lower even though it's higher because of perspective, something omitted from the calculator. Anyway, sorry to talk all over your demo, Ranty.
No, that's fine. It was just, I just thought I would.
Credit, Nathan.
Nathan, I was listening through some of the older ones, recent older ones, and a pinhole camera has been mentioned recently. What was the context of that?
Red herring.
Okay.
So we're saying that they're modelling in orthographic view, and Mick West is saying that if you take a pinhole camera, it will give you a modelled view of the world. You know, it's just a red herring. It's nonsense. Makes no difference. You know, we don't need pinhole cameras when we've got P900s. Ultimately speaking, what it's doing is technically the same thing. But
You wound me, comrade.
say again.
You wound me, comrade.
Oh, okay. No,
No,
correct me if I'm wrong, my
passion
friend.
is photography, and particularly using a pinhole camera. I have hundreds of pinhole images. That's what I do in my spare time. And this is a photograph. Can you see that, folks? Can you share that?
Cool.
Very cool.
That's the Fourth Road Rail Bridge taken with a pinhole camera.
Awesome.
I was hoping that we'd get something out of that to prove a flat Earth, but it certainly shows perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the pinhole camera was an address to us pointing out that the mathematics do not include perspective. They're calculating the world with a single line between target and observer, and that essentially gives you an orthographic view of the world. Regardless of its position, regardless if it's taken from the camera position, you still get an orthographic view. Whereas the issue we have is there's no perspective account made in those calculations for the target that you are actually going to calculate from. So while the calculations don't actually include the target height, what you see in the diagram is a single line being drawn, and it can only be assumed that you're going to take the actual height based on that, because if you had two lines converging at the center point, you'd have something you could use to calculate an angular size. And you don't have that. They don't take into account the way the world actually works, i.e. perspective. But the pinhole camera was just some red herring address to that.
Okay, well, that's a pinhole camera, and that certainly shows perspective.
Yeah, it's glorious, actually. Love it. Just leave it on screen 1 second. I'll just make it a bit bigger. Very cool.
Too bad you can't really zoom in with it, because it's very interesting.
Well, it's quite pixelated because I put that onto social media, so you can actually start seeing it pixelating now. But I mean, a pinhole camera does keep everything straight as long as you've got the film at right angles to the pinhole itself.
And how far away from the bridge was this taken?
Right, the far end of the bridge was a mile away from where I was standing.
And the closer where it's connected?
Like I could throw a stone at it. I mean, I don't know, what was it, maybe 30 feet away?
30.
See, the thing is, we were arguing about this before, about the repeatability of these observations and stuff. Well, when Brenda shows an image, right, from 1958 and says, there we go, and it's from outer space, how is anybody supposed to go up there and check for themselves?
Well, the flaws in that image is, how did they get the film back down to Earth in the first place? And secondly, film changes over a period of time, the styles of film, and whenever you look at a film of the 1950s and 1960s,
Wow.
1970s, you can see the different types of film that Kodak was producing, and that is far too clinical. Whatever he showed us was far too clinical
Yes.
for film to have captured.
It's way too crisp. That was like
Yeah.
post 90s quality.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
like no way in that age there was any photography that was of that crisp, clear quality.
NASA used Ektachrome during the 1960s. National Geographic used Kodachrome, and you can actually tell. You can look at an image and say, "I know what era that came from just by the look of and the colours of the film." But that was far too sharp and clinical for anything to be taken in the 1960s.
Yeah.
It's fraudulent.
That they probably if they created something, could be any time, maybe even somewhere within 20 years ago, and they just put it in the archive, basically frauded it in and said, "Oh, we found this old photograph." It's just complete fraud.
Exactly. That's exactly what's happened.
Yeah, just I still remember like seeing the. I was at the time when I was very young. I was very interested in the moon landing and all of that. I was really, really into that, like in my pre-teens, like a lot. I loved it. I was almost obsessed with it. Went to museums, space musea, that kind of stuff, and I had looked at the photographs that were from that time, and they were interesting, but they were just not that sharp. It never really was that sharp, ever. None of the photographs. And if they had color, then they had barely any color. It's just a bit blurry. And this is just not from that era. If you put that photo in between the photos from that era in space, in the time where they made these space photographs and everything, it'd stand out immediately. Like this is not from that time. You would see it immediately. Even the resolution doesn't really match, I think. The resolution is even too high for what was around back then. Just doesn't make any sense.
They knew they had to use the good stuff up in space, so they saved it for that.
Yeah, just that one photograph.
I mean, I can see why you were kind of obsessed with it because I mean, if it actually did happen, would it have been the coolest thing to ever happen?
Yeah.
If men did actually walk on the moon, that shit would be the coolest
Hey,
thing ever.
I
But
wanted to do that too one day. I wanted to design
why?
space stations. That is what I wanted to do a lot of my youth. I was
Yeah.
obsessed with science fiction, Star Trek, Babylon 5 especially, Star Wars 2, but mostly Star Trek and Babylon 5. I loved that stuff and it was always like, oh wow, how is this space station working? How is the centrifugal force keeping things up? What are their explanations for how like gravity is generated? And Babylon 5 had pretty interesting, well, science fiction theories about it, weren't as techno babbly as Star Trek, which were just very convoluted techno babble nonsense. It was very obvious, especially when you grow older, that it's just nonsense. But Babylon 5 was pretty, how do you say, modest in the way they try to explain things. So I like that a lot more about it. And I love that stuff. So I paid a lot of attention back then.
The last major movie to come out, space related movie to come out while I was still kind of on the low side was Gravity with Sandra Bullock, and I remember watching that movie and saying, "Wow, this is like a movie. It's so awesome." You know, all the concepts in the movie and stuff. And I was just like, wow. But part of me still felt like, this still doesn't make sense. It's like, especially when they go into there are all these satellites out there, and they're all hitting each other and breaking off into pieces, and other pieces are hitting other pieces. But we don't see any of that from any footage ever at any time. We don't see things hitting each other up there in the sky. We don't. It's nonsense.
Yeah, but that's only because now, as we're getting into the details and actually starting to figure it out, we're realizing that you should be seeing some of that. Well, back then, like even 20, 30 years ago, they just told me, like, yeah, it's too far away. It's just like, yeah, you don't see the curve because it's too big. And that trick works if you don't really think
Yeah, it
about it
does.
too well. It really works. So if they just say, yeah, it's out of sight, they got all the orbits perfectly planned out, they're never gonna crash. Really, it's just science fiction scare stuff.
It's
Then you're gonna
just a
believe it.
complete denial of reality. You they tell you you're spinning, but you just don't feel it. They tell you it's curved, but you just don't see it.
Yeah, that's
You
all
know,
just relative. It's all
All right, so
I
relative.
hate
I
I
have a
hate that
question that I
relative
just thought
thing.
about. I have a question that I just thought about for the movie. So the whole problem was there was space junk coming at them, right?
And gravity.
Right. So it was
Yeah.
traveling around the Earth and it was coming back at them. But wouldn't they be traveling as well? So they would never be able to be. They wouldn't be able to catch up to them. They would all be rotating. They would have to be
Right.
standing still.
They made it seem like the space chunk had 90 minutes to go around the planet every
Right.
time.
Right. But
And
that
it's
would
like,
mean
so,
that
all
they were
right, so
standing still. They weren't moving.
right. But obviously they have to be moving in some way or another, right? If they're out
So
there
then,
in orbit, right?
Yeah.
You would think.
Yeah, I just thought of that.
Yeah, the whole concept of geostationary orbits of satellites, that doesn't make any damn sense anyway.
And what was so silly to me, even though like I was still trying to figure it out, was the little jets on the spacesuit that they were using to guide themselves in the vacuum of space when she was trying to get away from or back to the Soyuz or whatever spaceship that was. And
Yeah,
they're
basic
using little
gas
jets.
propulsion.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's like it's that simple. You could just and
Yeah.
you're
Hey.
there.
Well,
I don't know. Kind of like this guy did in The Martian. Is that The Martian? You see that? I can't lie, that was a good movie too, The Martian, but it's just all crap when you think about it from this perspective. You're just gonna just look at it as entertainment. It's great, but
I never saw that movie. I should probably
Martian,
go watch it.
it was actually pretty good.
Okay.
I mean,
Thanks.
for
Thanks for.
I didn't like it.
I
it was
heard about
alright.
it, but I thought it was a bit whiny. Like, oh, they left the guy behind, and I thought it was a bit
I won't lie, I don't know how you feel
sentimental, so
about
I
Matt
never really
Damon,
got
but
into it. But I'm gonna take
Matt Damon actually made the movie pretty good.
important security.
But the way he acted it out, it was cool. But at the same time, I mean, it's the whole they're on Mars. Oh crap!
Fairy tales. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's to take your imagination away.
Yeah.
And if you think about the way technology is going, and you think about the kids of today, how many of them play out anymore?
No, kids don't play outside anymore.
No. They're all at home on their
I
iPhones.
don't see that. Yeah.
Or on the computers or the Xboxes.
Back in my day, on every block, you would see kids playing basketball in the street, chasing each other, playing manhunt. I mean, do kids even play manhunt anymore? It's like, do they even know what that is?
Well, if
there's still some people that do it though, but it's reduced drastically. It's like
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean,
when the weather's
every
really nice, then most like a quarter go outside.
If you
Most people
started,
just stay inside.
if you had a kid now and they started going out and playing manhunt, you'd have some snowflake that would come running up to you and saying, "You can't tell your children to play manhunt. It has man in it."
That depends on the region.
As
It has the
That
word
doesn't
man in
happen
it.
here, thank God. But I
You
still
should
What's
be
sad
see
is you're
kids
right.
playing outside every day here. So
Yeah,
non-sexual
Randy.
person manhunt.
Yeah, we have to be politically correct, right? So we have to be like person hunt.
oh God.
I mean, this is the silliness of the world now.
But this is what they're,
This is this
this
is
is
what's going on out there. It's ridiculous. So I don't know.
they are changing the way that the conditioning us without us knowing it, or we
Yeah,
know, but they don't. The kids that
yeah.
will grow up from the kids of today, those kids, well, I mean, I doubt they'll have even been out in their life and had a cold or got dirty or anything like that. But that's where you get all your antibodies as a kid. You build up your immune system by going out and playing.
And
Yeah,
getting
but
hurt and
it's
falling
pretty
down.
dependent on the very, very early youth and in the time that kids aren't really all that aware. So it just depends on the parents if they're basically gonna let their little toddler crawl in the forest or in the garden or whatever.
And the
So
people that of today that turn around and say, how can uh, how can the flat Earth even be possible? How can it be possible? Yeah, but yet they're the same people that pretty much know that we didn't go to the moon. That pretty much know that 9/11 was an inside job. But do you see them up in arms and roaring and screaming and shouting? Do you see that?
yeah, but
Do you see them causing a riot? No,
Oh,
like they've been dumbed
it's
down.
just the thing is every time there's a new conspiracy that just seems to actually be real, it just pun intended, it's like looming over the horizon. It's like, oh damn, there's more stuff that proves that a lot of the world is fake. And like the more you get of this type of knowledge you take towards you, the more you got disconnected from this feeling that everything in the world is all right and you can trust everyone. And at some point, many people they just can't take anymore. And flat Earth is just that one huge step that most people just know this is too much. People literally say it when they're into conspiracy theories and they get onto flat earth and just say, no, no, this is just too far. This is too much. And it is. It is. Psychologically, it is. Because once
yeah.
you dare to wander into that theory, then you wake up to so many things that the burden just increases manyfold compared to
Yeah.
the other conspiracies. And yeah, it is too much for many people.
I've had the biggest conspiracy theorists that I know that literally are into everything, every different conspiracy you can think of. And when I mentioned flat Earth, they absolutely think I'm like an idiot, a psychopath. I've been called. Um, yeah, I'm falling for the psyop. That's a big one with the guys who are already conspiracy theorists. They like to say that flat Earth is a psyop, and I'm like, so how is it any more of a psyop than all the other conspiracy theories? Which is something I don't understand yet. I don't understand why that's a response. Flat Earth,
It
that it's
is
a psyop.
conditioned in us from a very young age, and you have to remember that the globe literally is being indoctrinated in us through culture, through media, through all the media. Every time you
Right,
watch TV, you watch the news, there's always globe elements in there. And if that is completely
right.
going
But
past
what bugs me
your
out about that?
consciousness, then it's going to be entering your subconsciousness, and that part, that buildup of subconscious absorption of that type of illusion, that information, that is the thing that is responding. It is
But
basically your
think about
subconscious
how good
conditioning throughout your life. That is the thing
think
that is
about how
reacting.
good of a hoax this is, because this
It's
is the
huge.
one conspiracy that you could actually get into yourself. Like I mean, all right, let's say JFK. I can't do anything about JFK. I can't look into that, any look at all the research that's been done on that whole scenario. I can't go back and change anything. And unlike that, unlike flat Earth, I mean, flat Earth, you could. This is the world we're talking about. So yeah, we could research the actual world that we're on.
Yeah.
So how is that a psyop, but not all the other ones?
Well,
You know what I
it all
mean?
depends. Like each conspiracy field, like 9/11 or JFK, they all provide new levels of insight into a specific region. Like with JFK, you get to see into what is now named the deep state. You get to see in the shadow government how they do things. That is what you learn specifically from that. And with 9/11, the same thing, but in another era. And so you get information from that field, that occulted field behind the scenes. That is what you get. With flat Earth, you get so much more, and you get to see how all-encompassing this system is, how all-encompassing the occulted is to the human consciousness, and how it was designed to do that, and how so many people probably know about it and just use it. And yeah,
Because what jolted me out of it was obviously 9/11, because that was a lot more personal for me, being that I was in Manhattan on 9/11. So I kind of had no choice but to um I guess get into that, especially when after I made it out of Manhattan and then started hearing what the official story was supposed to be.
How soon did
It was
you
just
start to question it, Chocolate?
as soon as I got home. As soon as I
What
got
set
home and turned on the news after an hour after I started just trying to, I guess, decompress from what the hell just happened.
the same
And
day you thought things didn't add up?
oh yeah,
That's
I mean
amazing.
that morning I was literally thinking the island that I was on, the island of Manhattan, was going to be destroyed or something. Because I was like, what the hell's going on out here? You know, and I mean, luckily I wasn't involved in, I wasn't close enough to where the damage was. I was further midtown, up midtown, and the World Trade Center is like a few miles downtown from where I was. And yeah, just after getting out of there, the initial shock, and sitting, like everybody else, just sat and watched the news for hours and hours. And I'm like, wait a minute, there are certain things that are just not making sense. And it wasn't even what was happening in Manhattan, it's the other stuff that confused the hell out of me, like the Pentagon. And I'm like,
oh
wait a
yeah,
minute,
yeah.
I've worked at an airport. I've worked closely with aircrafts. I know wingspans. You're gonna tell me that was a plane that made that hole in the front of that building?
At a perfectly
Absolutely not.
round hole.
Absolutely not. And I'm sitting there waiting, just waiting for a further development, like them to say, okay, obviously, was it a plane? It was something else. And they're like, no, no. They just keep going with oh, it was a plane, and now we got witnesses talking about a plane. I'm like, what the hell is
And
going on
remember,
here?
remember the what is it, 2 or 3 frame camera footage from that impact. Remember that?
Yeah, well, I mean,
That was
I saw that,
such
but that was like way after. I didn't see that at that time. It was way after when I
such
saw that.
nonsense.
But weren't they supposed to
And
have
then they're
thousands of cameras around that would
Yeah,
have caught that?
right.
yeah, but they were all
The
off.
most
They were all
the
off
most video camera
for no reason.
building in the world, probably, I think. The most defense building in the world, and not one video of this fantastic plane that did this incredible maneuver. Like, it was just so silly. And then not only that, but then the other plane that supposedly went down, quote unquote. Which one was it? 93. And
Yeah.
they said the plane went into the ground. The passengers crashed there or something like that. And I'm looking, I'm like, where's the plane?
Yeah.
There's a hole in the ground. Where is the plane? Has anybody ever seen a plane crash? If you believe that that was a plane crash, you're a moron. Because there's not one piece of plane. There's not an engine, a seat, luggage, nothing, nothing. It was just so stupid. Just like with the Pentagon, they, some guy was picking up a little piece of aluminum, and they said that that was a piece of the fuselage. Are you kidding me? Like it was such a bad story. And I'm
Was it
just
paper
thinking, you
plane?
know, at the time I was still a little bit naive. So I'm thinking, all right, maybe the media guys, news guys, they just don't really know yet. So they're just going with this for now. But sooner or later, obviously, those stories have to change because this is not reality.
No.
It's not reality.
But you know, you
But
obviously you live in America, yeah. So what's the feeling
yeah, I
like in
live in New
America?
York.
What's the feeling like of most Americans now? I mean, is it kind of passive that they know that 9/11 was an inside job and they just get on with their daily lives, or are they actually really upset about it? Because I'm really pissed off about it.
It's
I
it's all over the spectrum, really, because there
yeah.
are some people who believe like the official story and it was just the saddest tragedy ever and the government loves them and that's what it is. And then there are
I
other
had
people who absolutely know that it was fake, it was crap, but we just what do they do? They just move on. They don't really.
I
That's
had
what I
dinner.
mean.
The
I had dinner
problem is
last.
it happened so long ago that now it's becoming something kind of like uh how should I say it's almost passe a little bit, you know, because I get on the train and when I'm crossing one of the bridges and it's incredible to me that I still remember what those buildings like where those buildings were. So now when I go into the city and I'm looking at the city and I'm like, it's incredible that this city is well, not completely, but like such a change has been made from when I grew up and looked at those two giant buildings, you know.
Yeah, plain truth. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, I'm sorry, bro.
I had dinner last week, and the guy sitting next to me at the bar, after a couple of minutes of silence, I brought up flat Earth as a conversation, and we were talking about that for a while. And he said, "Well, I buy into the JFK conspiracy and whatnot." And I said, "Well, what do you think about 9/11?" And I said, "Do you know about the Trade Center building number 7?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, what do you think about that?" He said, "Well, there was a stockpile of munitions and fuel, and
What?
it just went down."
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, and I stood there. I said, or he said, "You're serious? You actually believe that?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "So the building fell at free fall speed, just straight down from fuel and munitions and
Munitions
So
yeah,
were the
and
munitions
some office
stockpiled
fires.
all perfectly at the pillars, the foundations,
yeah." I mean,
and
he
then
just he
set
just
off simultaneously?
so I mean
Serious.
that's just last week. So you've got people, just from last week, you've got somebody who represents the mainstream story.
So what do you guys think about aliens? As I say, my interpretation of the word alien is probably different to you guys. It's like I believe that there are other beings with intelligent crafts and stuff like this, but I believe that they live beyond our reach, on our plane, but beyond our reach. What do you think?
Yeah,
I think that's
A
a good
different
assumption.
frequency, you mean?
No.
No, I prefer to
In
call
our
them
physical reality.
extraterrestrials, but yeah.
But I
I
believe
think
that
that's
we
possible.
are kept from exploring that region of our plane.
And are they playing
Yeah,
hide and seek with us, or can they not see us either?
No,
Oh
they can.
no, they can see us. But
So they're playing.
I think the term alien has been co-opted to believe like outer space
Yeah.
rather than extraterrestrial, which was its original term, which obviously if you think of the word terrestrial and extra being additional, you have extraterrestrials, extra humans, extra more intelligent humans perhaps, that have probably migrated and
yeah,
gone to
they
different
came from
lands.
the extra the extra land that we
Nah.
don't know about.
Yeah, that's what I,
I
that's what
wouldn't
I,
call it migration. They're just natives of the other dimension. They're there. They're here.
See,
They're
I've had
through.
to, and I was really big into the alien thing too. But I feel like since Flat Earth, I've had to rearrange that in my head as to not to try not to relate that to outer space. You know, like not try not to relate that to the planets and because what can I really know about the planets out there other than that they're just lights in the sky, you know. So to me, it would make sense if some type of
Hello
alien,
again.
what's
Hey,
up,
Dawn.
some
Hi,
type
Dawn.
of alien or extraterrestrial would come from somewhere here that we just don't know about or just can't get to or just can't see. That would make more sense to me.
Do you find it a bit sad that flat Earth has like made you change the belief of aliens?
Do I
No.
find it sad?
No, they didn't.
Because you can still have other bodies in the sky that aliens might have come from
No.
on a flat
Oh
Earth.
no,
No.
that's not to say I don't. Look, I've seen stuff in the sky that I know I'm not supposed to be seeing.
Right.
So that hasn't Flat Earth hasn't taken that
It's like an easy
memory
switch
away
from
from me.
coming from another world in the
No.
universe to coming from another dimension that we don't know.
Well, I already had the inkling of the dimensional thing too. So
Right.
to
Yeah,
me,
even well
that
in the
doesn't.
90s, there was talk about the shifting.
Oh.
Remember the glowing orbs, how they basically appear and then like move away, just disappear.
Is there no room for
Yeah,
another flat planet, that has aliens on it or dinosaurs on?
No,
No room.
no.
Well, what if this is the only? What if this is the only
This
planet?
is Earth. This
How do
is
we
ground
see?
zero.
That's
This
the thing
is
that
the only
fascinates me.
place.
What
This
if
is the
this
only
is
physical
literally like?
dimension.
The
There are
only
other
physical one that
literally
you know of that you believe in.
well, that I've seen.
Right.
I've seen a lot.
Well, you've seen other things. You've just decided they're not physical.
No, they're not.
Right, because how can we know they're physical?
But I guess you can just switch the belief in aliens from another planet to aliens from another dimension, but it kind of ruins some of the story and the mystique of the alien thing.
Not really,
No,
because I
not
think
really.
they
Not,
go
not
hand
if
in
you
hand.
actually find out
Lots
what
of
they are
fiction
and
down
what they're doing.
down the pan.
No, the more you learn about it, the more fascinating they will become, and the more scary.
So you don't believe in TRAPPIST-1 and 7 exoplanets?
No,
Possible.
no, there are no planets.
5
There
times
are only Earth.
dinosaurs.
Need R
No.
for that. Need a scientific evidence of the R value that you assume for all that bullshit to exist.
Well,
No.
I'm just talking about aliens from other worlds in the sky.
Yeah, but
that's
there are
based
none.
around.
There are no other worlds in the sky. There
Alright,
is
that's
only
fair
Earth, and there are physical realms in the Earth. There is probably Shelob, the underrealm underneath our Earth realm,
Probably.
Yeah,
and
because
that's it.
honestly, I
Those
think
are the
that's a.
physical realms. And
I
hey, how
think that
much
might
land
be
there
a.
actually is on the surface, on the very much flat surface of the
Gotta
Earth,
give you
is
credit.
still
Owen.
to be discovered by
So
us.
creative.
So there could be other worldly continents out there that are not officially known, that are populated by other humans or even other species that are much more ancient than us. We
Yeah,
don't
that
know
And
that
some
yet. There's
and
still a lot of
something
mystery
else
out there
people
for
forget,
us.
and something else people forget. Look how big the oceans are, right? We don't know shit about the damn oceans. Okay, so who's to say that the extraterrestrials aren't coming from where we already know, the oceans? Because look, I mean, there's plenty of people who've seen crafts come in and out of the water, fly right out of the water straight into the sky, or vice versa. It's happened. I mean, I've
Yeah, they
never
don't
seen
call
that
them.
personally.
Don't
I
call
would
them
love to.
UFOs. Is it like SFOs or something? Like
What
sea.
No, it's
Deep
UFO.
flying objects. No, it's not.
No, it's
UFO
unidentified.
or
I think they changed the
UAP.
term. Oh, you're talking about
That's
water
the new
ones.
one.
Yeah. But I do believe there's so much stuff that we don't know. If you think about all the films and the different times that you've heard this particular phrase, which is "there's nothing else to explore," it's all been explored, right?
Exactly.
And that's what we're told. So we believe it. If you keep telling the same lie over and over, everyone will believe it. So how many adventurers do you see nowadays? There ain't that many.
Let's
how
pretend,
they kept,
that there is
that's
no
how
space,
they kept
and there is a dome above flat Earth. But would you still consider that the final frontier, to go up and look yourself and discover the dome or the reflection or the hologram or whatever you're going to look for?
Good question, but we don't know. We don't know what's there. So
yeah, so I'm saying
there could be a huge tunnel upwards.
If you could take control of NASA, you'd still want to go up and look up there, wouldn't you?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
You could.
But you wouldn't misrepresent it. You'd tell the truth about it.
If we
Why
were
would I
allowed to.
misrepresent it? Like,
what reason have we got other than to control others with the information?
Yeah, but you might get power hungry like NASA.
Right. So you accept that they are power hungry and controlling your paradigm, or it just seems like you talk like a flat earther most of the time, except when we try and pin you down on your belief.
Yeah, well, I still believe the spinning globe, but I understand your philosophical points.
They're not philosophical. When we ask for scientific evidence or something and there is none, that points to your belief being a philosophical one.
Yeah, but if you can't be given none and you've gone through 20 Globus and they can't give you proof of R themselves, then give it up.
Yeah,
shouldn't
but it's
that
not
be
me
a
that's...
problem, though,
hold
John?
on, it's not me that
Shouldn't
holds
that be a
that
problem?
belief. I don't hold a belief in R, so what are you telling me to give up exactly?
No, give up asking for proof of it. If you now know there isn't any that you're satisfied
But
with.
you don't. You still think there's scientific evidence of this nonsense. You still think your religion isn't a religion. You say things like, if we just concede for the sake of argument that space isn't real, it's like, okay, well, clearly in your mind it is real then, right?
Yeah, I think space is real.
Right. Well, that's your belief. It's based around an assumed value of this R, though. In other words,
it's not
spherical
based on
planets.
R. It's based on all the fiction from space, all the fiction about space, me looking up, thinking it looks wonderful myself with my own eyes. People that I trust that might own telescopes. It's based on a lot of stuff. It's not based on R. I don't care about the radius of
What do they see in telescopes? Well,
I know
yeah,
it's
it is
big.
based on R. It's based on those stars that you see moving above
I know
your head.
Earth is so big that it looks flat.
Right,
In
but
a
the
lot of
stars
observation.
moving above your head.
So
right?
why don't you believe
Hold
in
on,
the
Dawn
gods?
doesn't
Why don't
think
you
that the
believe in the
stars-
pantheon? You know how much has been written about them?
I
Dawn
believe in
doesn't think
nature. I
that
don't think
Dawn
nature is a
doesn't
god.
think that the star rotations are based on a value of R. So the stars are moving, are they, Dawn, or is it the spherical Earth that's turning?
Do you
Which
mean
one
the
is
star
it?
rotations are based on a value of R?
Right, which one's turning? The stars or the spherical Earth, Dawn?
Well, I think the Earth's turning because. I
Oh,
can't
would that
imagine a higher
could that
power
need
spinning
any
the
would
whole
that need
sky.
any evidence of
I
R,
know you
Dawn?
feel differently about it.
Dawn. So would that need any evidence of R then, or not?
Why? Why would it need evidence of R?
Oh, because you think you're on a sphere that has
No,
a
I've
radius,
seen the stars
that has a
moving, and
value.
I've deduced
Dawn,
that
you're
it's
not listening.
moving,
You're
not
talking
the- not
over
the
me
sky.
when we get to the
I am.
point. You understand, Dawn? This is what you're doing. You're fighting it. Fighting it. It's lovely
No,
for
I
the
butt in
audience.
when you misrepresent me. Sorry.
I'm not misrepresenting you. If the stars aren't turning, it's the Earth that's turning. The spherical Earth, Dawn. Then that needs a bit of R now, doesn't it?
Why?
Because it's
Dawn,
supposed to be a...
do you
Oh, you're
think,
just dumb. Okay, I give up.
Don, do you think if you were never told or never taught that we're on a globe and the Earth is a sphere, would you just you observing the sky? Do you think you would come to that conclusion yourself?
I hope
this is a
eventually.
ball.
Eventually, I might be able to work it out myself. Yeah.
That
Because
this is
I
a
think
ball.
it's unreasonable to think the whole sky moves just for you. Myself.
Okay.
How is
It's
that?
not the
And
sky
you,
that
and
moves.
so you're saying
The sky doesn't
based on
move.
But you
looking
can
at
control
the
that
sky.
algae.
There's no air moving. The sky doesn't move. It's
Well,
the
you know what I
light-
mean, Owen.
The
The objects
lights
in
that
the
we
sky.
get to see that move.
Yeah,
The sky
that's
doesn't
what I
move.
mean. The objects in the sky.
They're not objects.
They
They're
do move.
lights.
They do move, Dawn.
And you would come to the
Yes.
conclusion that this is a ball that's got water.
Eventually,
sticking to it.
maybe I'm not clever enough to
flying
come to
around
that
in space.
conclusion on my own, but I don't know. I'd hope that I
I
would.
don't know, man.
But you
I have
don't
a
even
I have a
recognise.
philosophical
Why do you
question.
hope that you would?
I have a
Because
philosophical
I don't
question.
want to feel
What if
special.
what if
like
that's
one of God's
but what if
creatures.
that's wrong? What if that's wrong? Why
Well,
would you
prove it to
still
me.
hope
Show me
that
the
you
edge
would?
of the plane.
Don't need to come
But
up
I
with
don't
some
know if
just
there's
so
an
story
edge.
For
for
me
you,
to believe
Dawn.
flat Earth, you do.
Dawn, right? We're trying to point out that you hold a religious belief, and you're telling me give up on our. It's like, what are you talking about? That's your belief. And then you tell me how it's the Earth that's turning,
You know
the
what I meant?
spherical
I
Earth.
meant
But
give
you
up
don't.
asking
You just
people to
talk
prove
over
I'm
me.
wrong.
Whenever I point this out, you fight it. You fight it while I point it out to you. That in order to
Dawn.
hold the beliefs you do, in other words, world turns and you see the things above your head static but turning because you're moving, that all requires radius values. Yeah?
No, it doesn't.
It does. It puts
Doesn't.
you on a sphere, Dawn. You don't get it because you're not smart enough. It's fine. You fight me
don't
when I try
require
and when I
art to
try and
have a
explain.
belief.
You talk over me, and that's because you're dumb. That's what dumb people do. They don't listen.
But Dawn, what he's trying to tell you is that what you believe is there because of the R. Okay? They had to come up with the radius of the Earth before they came up with everything else that followed it. You
I'm
understand?
not sure.
So
I'm
yes,
not sure about that.
what do you mean you're not sure about
Well,
that?
people were studying the
You're
sky
sure
way,
it's a
way
ball,
before
right?
art, weren't they?
You're sure it's a ball, right?
Not sure.
You were told.
98%.
Okay, so you were told it's a ball, and you 99% believe it's a ball, right?
Right.
Okay, so that ball has to have a radius, right?
Why?
It's a ball.
It's not my
Because it's a
responsibility, is
ball,
it?
don't.
Why should I
Don't,
have to know
don't.
art?
Hang on, wait a minute.
I'm not even.
How would you figure out that you were living on a ball if you don't even know how to work out what a ball is?
And you know what the
Some of it's
radius
based
is
on
of-
trust.
Okay, so you trust that there's a radius to the Earth.
Yeah.
So when we wait, so you don't think it's a problem that nobody's been able to provide the exact mechanism of how we reached that
Well, I've been
Oh, they can
explained
provide
that they did it with
mechanisms. They've got
sextants
plenty of
on
mechanisms
boats.
for it. But he said it all already. He trusts. In R we trust, Dawn. That's
Some
what
of
I
it's
keep
based
putting at
on
the bottom
trust.
of the
It's not to
comments,
do with
isn't it?
R.
I say at the bottom of the comments, have you read them? In R we trust. And you certainly do. You trust in R.
Why
I
do
don't
you
care
trust
about
these
art.
guys that you? Why do you trust these guys that you don't know?
Because it fits
much?
with the observations I make myself.
No, they're based on a presupposition. They use the R value. That's my point with the stars, Dawn. You're just too stupid to get it.
No.
Anyway, with that, I think I'll probably round out and say, first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. And, of course, a massive thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. If you hated the show, then you know what to do. But if you liked it, consider sharing it or subscribing if you have not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!